right. Welcome to the Sci-Fi Express Lane. Remember to like, share, subscribe, and comment. Fans are building, supporters are building, and I'm just running my mouth. So today, I'm talking about the internationals are coming. The internationals are gunning for us. It's all good. It's all sci-fi. Talking about international sci-fi from around the world. You almost have to accept and bow down when you think about films from around the world that no matter what the genre, Hollywood dominated and still dominates. You know, when you think about the Marvel movies, it dominates, and it's a good thing that they dominate. You know, I was looking at the story of this actress who played Marilyn Monroe, and she started in Cuba. She went to Spain and got into telenovelas, and just her track and how she came to Hollywood, and then now she's making Knives Out. She got the Marilyn Monroe joint, and it's not just she's making it in Hollywood or she just came to Hollywood. She came and started making better movies, and where do you make these best movies? I'm a big advocate of Tyler Perry. Spike Lee didn't always do his movies in Hollywood, but it's not that you can't make a movie outside of Hollywood. It's that, Hollywood makes really good movies. Most of the best, when I say the best movies, I will say a lot of real good movies, because best movie is hard to do because you don't need money to do it. You need, sometimes it's just everything clicks. I wouldn't say it's luck, but it's everything works because it's art. It's subjective. But when it comes to international sci-fi, yeah, you could say, hey, let's make a Hollywood movie in another country. Still not necessarily that international feel. So 3 movies that I like to talk about today. Dang, I forgot my cough drops. Is this Indian movie named RRR, which won I think it was an Academy Award, and I forgot what it's for. I should be doing my research, but it won an award. So I'm good for all the awards, right? Then this new Asian movie come out of China called Jumper, which is a robot movie. And as much as it's about that movie, I'm just using it as an example. And then this another movie came out of Norway. I thought it came out of Russia, but it came out of Northern Europe. Trolls. It's on Netflix. And so when I start talking about or start thinking about international sci-fi, I think there's some stuff that come out of South Africa. I think Chappie might be an example of that. And of course, Britain has a bunch of good movies. I think V for Vendetta was a movie out of Britain. But I'm just going to use these other ones: Jumper, RRR, and Troll. And when I think of international sci-fi, sci-fi in particular, because sci-fi is the one that has the biggest budget, has the most creative people pulled together, whether it's animation, whether it's green screen technology, all those things are employed in science fiction. The imagination of the writers, the costume designers. That's sci-fi. Sci-fi shooting on all cylinders. Think of Star Trek, think of Star Wars, space operas. You got to design all new types of worlds. And when you think of international science fiction, you're now jumping into a different culture's imagination, which is beautiful. I like it. It's a different pacing. I was just watching bank job, the original with Robert De Niro, out there in England, and even that is not even a science fiction, but it is a British picture. And when you're watching British, when you're watching Indian, when you're watching Chinese or Japanese, you're going to be open to a different story pacing, the way they tell their stories, sometimes even the way they shoot their scenes, the way they hold the camera positioning. All of that is beautiful, and I think that impacts the science fiction as well. When I watched the movie Troll, it reminded me a lot of Hollywood, the regular Western story, but it went on a English fairy tale story arc. And America, Hollywood does that all the time, but we still do something to it that makes it American. We still got to go back, whether it's corporate and say, oh, this is what works, don't break the wheel, or something. We always go back to our Hollywood story, three act storyline, and people will say, oh, I see that story arc in every film. You can say you see that, but they may call it something different. I'm actually going to look into it, because they do it so consistently that it's got to be something different, especially when we do it so differently. Ours is called the Act 1, Act 2, Act 3 story arc. And I remember the Euro step, and people called it travel, people called it creative, but it was something different, and then eventually they called it the Euro step in basketball. Before it was like a travel, or it was direction changing, avoiding a collision. But eventually, not only did it catch on, but it became so popular that it got its own name, the Euro step. So variations are how different things are coined. So right now we have a variated story arc, but eventually I believe it is going to be named its own story arc, and that's with the Norway stories. I think even the Asian stories have that, but I think what makes the Asian stories, when I'm thinking of Train to Busan, that's out of Korea, right? When I'm thinking of Wandering Earth, that's Asia, China. That thinking of this one now, Jumper, Space Sweepers, all those. I think they have a lot in common with manga, even though manga is Japanese, and these movies are Chinese. I do think there's a lot of similarities in the story arc, the way the stories come together, the way they imagine science fiction, the way they imagine the universe. They embody a lot of harmonious things that, there may be a Hollywood picture that does that, but it's not a narrative of the Hollywood pictures, because it's not something that they have to do. It's not characteristic of Hollywood as it is. And then when you take RRR, I think what makes Bollywood stories so unique is their rhythmical, poetic storytelling. Yeah, Bollywood is known for having dance scenes and stuff like that, no doubt. And they always seem to squeeze that in. That's like Hollywood pictures having love scenes or sex scenes. They're infatuated with it. And the wild thing is, people used to think those things were normal. You have a story. Indiana Jones is the hero. Oh, it's nothing. It's a leading lady. You're gonna have to have, a love scene. So, people think that's a natural thing to have in an action story or something that happens horrific. But now we can easily see, for the bigger public, with these international pictures, that the leading lady is not really there. And the sex scene we used to call the love scene is not needed, for it to even be a good picture, right? For it to, you don't have to imagine having sex. You don't have to have this sexually tense moment that, these people are pushed together and next thing you know, they break out and start kissing each other. You don't have that. I'm not even going to get into LGBT elements in Hollywood, but those aren't, found either. Whether it's heterosexual or LGBT, it's not in the international scope. So Bollywood, and I mean, this is like maybe 3 Bollywood pictures that I've watched, but this one is definitely celebrated, and I see some similarities in it to some of the other Bollywood movies that I've watched, because there's not a lot of Bollywood science fiction, but this one is a superhero story, so it falls in the lines of Marvel, and they flirt with the supernatural. So if anything, it may not be as comparable to Captain America or Batman, that's very realistic, or more realistic, or tries to be realistic. This is more like, oh my God, I would say it's more like Shazam. I think it's like Meteor Man. I think it's a very hyper realistic story. Gosh, borderlines on comedy in Hollywood comparison, but it does play that. They also play with the 3-arc. They also 3-arc narrative. I think they have a different type of arc, because for me, when I watch them, they seem slow. Even though they have a lot of action in it, the pacing is a different pacing. At least RRR is. What else is there? I think the leading lady is, when I think of like these Bollywood, which is, Nollywood is Nigeria, but these Bollywood pictures, especially superhero, I go back to the Indian Spider-Man and the Indian Superman, and how these, funny Western mocking comic book character movies, shorts were made, and I can't help but feel that what do you call it? This RRR, these long fiction superhero pictures are nothing but a stretched out parody. I know it may sound disrespectful, but I actually think they're big parodies. I mean, America, Hollywood copies each other's scripts and tells the same story twice. But I think, and it's not short for complimenting the screenwriters. It's not short of complimenting, the people who thought of the story. But I personally feel a very spoofish element to it, and for it to be as successful as it is in both India and the Western world, it's greater than them wanting to spoof something and just accepting a spoof picture, because spoof pictures wouldn't do that well. This has got to be something celebrated in its own, like Kung Fu Hustle. That's not spoofish. You may have a spoof scene and scene that's, in there that is making fun of a particular superhero or power. But for the whole picture, nah, it's got to be celebrated as it is, and it's done good. So I don't know. I just think overall, how do these type of international sci-fi pictures are coming, which are only going to get better, just like Hollywood. If you look at the movies of the 30s, sci-fi, well, not even 30s, 70s, sci-fi was very cheesy. Didn't seem like they flushed out their characters. They didn't even flush out the stories. Forget the props, because we know special effects is quadrupled, especially with CGI. But, science fiction pictures were as cheesy as the Star Trek television show. And, the acting is not necessarily blaming the actors, but the script and everything was not as serious as it is now. If you look at this new Picard television show, golly, leaps and bounds in seriousness. Star Trek television show was like, what's that one with Chris Tucker in it? Fifth Element, or Valerian. It was borderline spoofish Orville stuff. So anyway, I just think the overall message of this blog is, yeah, we can discuss these international science fiction pictures. Get ready for a different sci-fi answer to a question, but also these stories are growing and changing as a production, and that's about it. So I just wanted to drop this off to you, and remember, like, subscribe, share, and have a hearty conversation about sci-fi by making a comment on my page. Thank you. Peace.